Hello all and welcome to another video from History 0114. So today we're back at Orgreave again. This time it's for the 15th anniversary of the last coal being removed from the site. Now this brought an end to 170 years of industry here, so we're going to be taking a little look around the site. Obviously we're going to include some of the miners' strike, but we're also going to look at some other things as well. We're going to go through just a bit of history about the place and see what we can find. So I'm currently stood here on the Orgreave Lane Bridge, which, as you can see behind me, is still showing scars from the 1984 strike. It's got Scargill number 1 graffitied on it, along with Tories out further up. Some things never change. But behind me just here, you can see, is the Lincoln to Sheffield Railway. Now there's only 2 lines on this railway, but back at the time of the miners' strike there was actually up to 7 lines, believe it or not, on this line behind me. That's because it was Rotherwood sidings, and my granddad actually used to work here. This is where he used to come down to work every day. Just further up past the bridge there's some green gates, and that was the entrance to the path which took you down to Rotherwood siding. So a bit of personal history for me there. That's where my granddad worked all his life. So we're currently on Orgreave Lane, like I said. This was the entrance to the colliery, and as you can see behind me, the road just comes to an abrupt stop, and that was because of the open casting. And you can just see Waverley Hill behind me. We're going to have a look at that and have a look at why Waverley Hill exists. It's not just for show. It's got a purpose and a job. So we're going to go and have a walk around and see what we can find. Now we're just walking up Waverley Hill, and everybody in Sheffield's heard of Surprise View out in the Peak District, but this is like Rotherham's mini version of Surprise View. And personally, it's one of my favourite views. As you just come over the brow of the hill, it opens up to your Treaton, all the lakes. You can see as far down as Woodhouse Mill, and then you can see all the way over to junction 33 of the M1. So it's quite a nice view. It's very nice, and it's quite a nice feature. But we're going to do a little bit of history about the actual hill, which seems strange, but this hill is here for a reason. So, I'm currently stood at the top of Waverley Hill, which was formerly the site of Orgreave Hall. Now, I'm not going to go too much into Orgreave Hall because I've done an entire separate video on that. A glorious 17 minutes long. If you want to go and check it out, it'll be on the page. But I'm going to show you a few photos now of just what this area used to look like. And we're going to go through a little bit of history of the hill we're standing on. Because like I said previously, it has got a purpose. It's not just here to look fancy. So, when Orgreave was being decontaminated, all the muck and all the grime and all the toxic stuff were being dragged out from the ground. They needed somewhere to put it. So the plan was to build a big hill on this side of the site and bury all the toxic waste and all the grimy stuff underneath this hill, and then cover it with clay. Now that might seem quite a hazardous thing to have around a nature reserve and nearby houses, but it's quite safe. There's nothing wrong with it. It's some people may disagree, but it's all green around here. There's nothing toxic spilling out anyway. It's quite safe. So just a brief history about Orgreave then. In 1086 it was recorded as being called Orgreave. Now it's always been a small village. It's never been anything big or magnificent. In fact, in the 2011 census, the population was just over 700. Now, just to put them figures into perspective for you, obviously behind me is the new housing estate known as Waverley, which is built on the former site of the coking plant. Now, like I said, it's never been a big village. The last census was 700 people. Now, since these houses have been built, the population has grown, to my estimate, to 3,267. So that's quite a big increase. So obviously that needs a lot more infrastructure, you know, better roads and stuff like that, which we will have a look at in a minute with the bridge, the famous Orgreave bridge, which has obviously played a prominent part in the miners' strike. So we've just arrived at the Orgreave Colliery Memorial, which is a very large boulder, very large one indeed. And inside, as you can see, is a miner carved out of the stone. It's extremely muddy around here, so I'm gonna have to watch my step. But my favourite feature of the Miners' Memorial, which is relatively out of sight, but if you just come around this side, you can see that the miners' feet are actually sticking out of the other side, which is quite a cool feature. And this overlooks the site of the former colliery and the coking works just over there. And if we just come around here, there's a plaque which reads, "Dedicated to the workers of Orgreave Colliery." Now, coal mining started on this site all the way back in 1820. That was Doorhouse Colliery. It was started by the Sorby family, which have been mentioned in the Orgreave Hall video. They kind of started this whole coal revolution around this area. And then in 1851, Orgreave Colliery was opened as a successor to Doorhouse Colliery. And that lasted until 1981, obviously closing around the time as many other pits in the area. Now, the colliery closed in 1981, but the coking works remained open until 1990. And that was because just behind me there is the village of Treaton. Now, Treaton obviously had a colliery as well. And there was a drift coming out of the hillside which fed Orgreave coke ovens with coal from Treaton Colliery. So whilst Treaton remained open, Orgreave coke ovens was being supplied. Treaton closed down in the early 1990s, and that spelled the end for the coking works as well. And that's what kick-started this whole redevelopment of this area, mass redevelopment if you want to call it, because this were a big job. It were not just your typical knock it down and just build again. This was a big job. So, like I said to you before, the area was heavily polluted. In fact, the River Rother, which ran through the site, was dubbed one of the most polluted rivers in the whole of the United Kingdom. Not just from Orgreave, you know, they weren't the only contributors. Also, the coalite plant in Bolsover contributed to the pollution of the River Rother as well. But the whole area had to be decimated. So basically, an operation took place called open cast mining. So your typical coal mine is a shaft which goes deep into the ground, and your miners fetch your coal out and bring it back up to the top. Now, open cast mining is completely different. In simple terms, it's just digging a big hole in the ground and just taking the coal out of the ground from there. It's scary to look at. There's not that many photos of the open cast at Orgreave. There's a few on Google, but it never really gives you the true scale of it. It's like a big Grand Canyon. It's mental how far it goes down. In fact, I believe the Orgreave open cast went down about a mile. So imagine having to dig a hole the size of this place a mile down. It's a big job. So the whole place was decimated. There was nothing left. All the ground levels were all changed. So it's kind of a new place completely as to what it was. but there are still a few remnants of the old Orgreave. To my knowledge, there is only 2 buildings out of the whole site what are still here to this day, what managed to escape the open cast. Now, you'd think someone who runs a history page would know it all. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. I don't. So I'm going to need a bit of help with this one. Dotted around the Orgreave site are these little monitoring stations. Well, that's what I'm assuming they're going to be. Now, I'm not sure what these are. I've tried to reference the old shafts on the site, but I can't pinpoint these to any sort of shafts. I'm going to put a picture up now of a list of all the shafts on this site. Now, this is going to surprise you, because when people think a mining site is closed, the shafts are capped, and that's that. There's usually 2 to 3 shafts, sometimes 4 on bigger sites, but this photo will shock you on how many mining shafts. Each red dot on this photo shows where there is a full or partial mine shaft on this site. So, coming back to this, what I'm going to call a monitoring station. If anybody does know what it is, please get in on the comments, let me know what it is. It looks almost like a well with a cover on it. If you can just see behind me these little wire ropes going down. Now, this could be for a number of reasons, like I said, monitoring, but also, like I previously mentioned about the toxic waste under the hill, it could be to do with monitoring that. I'm not sure. There's not a lot of information. I've tried to research, I've asked a few people, but they don't seem to know. So someone out there does know, so if you could let us know, that'd be brilliant. Message me, comment, whatever, get in touch. Now, something else I wanted to talk about as well. I can't actually find any exact figures of people what died down Orgreave Colliery, or Doorhouse for that matter. And I also think that it's quite sad. I know there's a memorial, but just for a minute spare a thought for people what did die down pits, because it's can't have been nice. I mean, it won't have been instant death all the time. There'll have been collapse and people will have been alive for days even. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but when you're laid there in darkness not knowing if anybody's coming, that's scary. So yeah, I do think pit deaths are always kind of overlooked. So yeah, it's nice to have a memorial, and always spare a thought when you're driving through it. But you know, people died not taking huge risks for, you know, being adrenaline junkies or all that. They were simply going to work. That was the norm. They were risking their lives, going, you know, miles underground and risking their lives, essentially to bring energy to the country. Now, just on a little side note from all this, back when I made the Orgreave Hall Lost and Found video, I was having a bit of trouble with Rotherwood Hall. Now, I've been researching this place for 10 years plus, and I had never seen a photo of Rotherwood Hall. And then I come across 2 from a lovely lady what supplied some photos from a personal collection. Now, one of the photos, I couldn't identify it as Rotherwood Hall. I'd sent it around numerous people who lived around the area at the time and knew the area well, and no one could confirm it. So I didn't include it in the video. Because if I can't be sure, I'm not going to put some false information on a video. But now, someone has confirmed to me that it was Rotherwood Hall. So I'm just going to show you that photo now, just to give you an insight into what this spot behind me looked like. So, I'm going to put a few more maps on your screen now. And this shows you what kind of inconvenience the open cast caused. As you can see, for example, if you wanted to go from Handsworth to Catcliffe, you could have drove straight down, over the old bridge, straight through Orgreave, right through the middle of the coatworks, and arrived at Catcliffe. But after this road was closed, there was no way through. So they actually had to, a couple of years prior, they kind of knew what were going to happen. So they constructed a new road which went all the way around the site where they were going to open cast. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't, you know, miles and miles and miles out of the way, but it definitely is a longer journey to Catcliffe from Handsworth than it was. But recently the road has been reopened as it was, nearly as it was. So, geo-referencing a few maps, the road follows the same route as it did until about 3/4 of the way down, where it takes a very weird bend. I'm not sure why. I'd hazard a guess to stop it becoming a rat run as such. I'm guessing they want people what are, you know, driving around this area, if they're not going to Waverley itself, they want them to stick to the main roads. They don't want it to become like a little shortcut to Catcliffe or Morrison's or such things. So I think that's why they might have done that. Okay, so I'm currently stood on Rosewood Drive. Now that might seem insignificant. It's just a road on the new Waverley estate, but from my georeference maps, this is the actual site of the gas holders, which were probably the most recognisable part of the Orgreave site. So if you ask anybody to visualise what Orgreave looked like as a coking plant, you know, the first thing what usually pops into there is the two huge gas holders. I'll show you some photos now, I'll put them up on the screen for you. So this is it, this is the exact location of the gas holders. So we're now just arriving at the first building which I mentioned earlier, which survived post open cast Orgreave. It's nothing much, it's just a small electricity substation, but there is a documentary on YouTube about the Battle of Orgreave, and quite a few miners who were injured actually went behind this building to try and escape what was happening. In fact, from memory, I think there was a guy what had, I think he got a broken leg or something like that, and he'd managed to hobble his way up to this electricity substation here and hide behind it. Obviously, I don't think it was all fenced off like it is now. So yeah, might just be an electricity substation, but it offered refuge for some miners what were trying to escape what was happening at Orgreave on that day. Now, it's not a building, but this is another thing what survived at Orgreave after the open cast. It's the old stone wall, and you can see it follows the old road, and as it goes further up it just disappears into the overgrown bushes, and it carries on up to the old bridge, which is just there, all fenced off. So we're now stood on the old road. You can just see there, that's the old curb. None of the tarmac is, can be seen now, it's all just covered in moss and mud. But you can see the wall carries on all the way. In fact, you can just see a bit of the old tarmac just popping up there. Obviously a lot of fly tipping and such things. You can just see the new bridge there, so you can see just how close it is. And the old bridge now is all fenced off. Now, I put a post on History 0114 the other day, which a lot of people were commenting on regarding this bridge. So it was closed in 2006, and it's just been left here ever since. I've done some research on why it's still here. Apparently the National Rail can't afford to take it down, as it would cause too much disruption to the Lincoln to Sheffield railway line, which runs underneath it. So it just sits here abandoned. How long for? I don't know. I don't know how structurally stable it is. I'm not sure. But I think it's a shame, as it is the only prominent reminder of the miners' strike, of the old Orgreave, which is still here. And personally, what I'd like to see, if possible, maybe for it to be reopened to the public, not as a road obviously, but maybe like a little footpath, put some artwork on the panels of the old bridge, maybe some pictures of the miners' strike, what happened here, because it should be remembered, regardless, because it's a very political thing, regardless what your beliefs are, whether you want justice for Orgreave or whether you think police acted accordingly. Regardless, it was one of the most bitter strikes this country has ever seen. Not just in the 80s, not just in that century, ever. It was bitter. And what you've got to understand is, it wasn't just a strike. It put the whole country on red alert, because at that time coal was king. Coal powered the whole of the country. So no coal, it's no power. Your lights go off and that's it. You're done. So the miners' strike was very, very historical, and it should have more of a memorial here. Like I said, we've looked at some memorials here on the Orgreave site. We've got a memorial to the miners at Orgreave Colliery. We've got a plaque for the new bridge being opened. Just down the bottom, we've even got a plaque for the rerouting of the River Rother during the open cast workings, but there is no mention of the biggest thing whatever happened here. So it should definitely be remembered. It shouldn't dominate it, like I said previously, but it should be remembered. So that's the old bridge. How long it's here for, who knows, but just while we're here at the old bridge, just noticed someone's made a rather cracking shot and managed to get a hula hoop caught on it. So whoever that was, cracking shot. So we're now at the new bridge, which, as I mentioned earlier, was constructed for a number of reasons. Number one, the old bridge was weakened and could only allow single lane traffic, which, with the development of Waverley in the very near future, it needed to be a wider road to allow more traffic to come through. So this is why the bridge was built, and just next to it we can see a little plaque which reads Highfield Lane Bridge, officially opened by Councillor G. Smith on the 6th of February 2006. And you can just see the old bridge just poking out there. And just on a little side note from Orgreave history, if you can see behind me there's a little lake, just with a little island in the middle. Well, just behind that there's a very large hill which is still active in the redevelopment of Orgreave. There's lorries and other such things, big diggers, all travelling to that location to dump a load of stuff what's coming from the building of the new Waverley estate. But that's not a bad thing, because I actually went fossil hunting there the other week, and it's quite good and interesting. I'm not a big fossil fan, or I've never done it before, but we found some riverbed and some freshwater mussels, and these things are millions of years old. I'll put some photos up on the screen now what we found, so if there's any fossil enthusiasts or it's something you might like to do, it's quite local, so get yourself down. The only thing I would say is just have a little word with some of the drivers of the lorries beforehand and just make sure it's all okay to go on. We asked the drivers and they were fine with it. They said it were safe, just watch your steps, so have a word with them first, keep yourself safe, but feel free, go and have a good look, see what you can find. Now we're just at the middle of the Orgreave site now, with Waverley Hill just behind me, and about halfway down the hill there's this road which is desolate, and it's very strange to be on. It's used for traffic which go to the site which I mentioned with the fossils, so big lorries and diggers will come along here at various points throughout the day. But I've always wondered, I mean, why would you tarmac a road just for diggers which are used to going on mud and big lorries to go over? Now I know a few years ago there was plans for a road to go from Waverley right way through the site and down to Woodhouse Mill. Now, if anybody knows Woodhouse Mill, when you get to the bottom of Retford Road and the junction with Furnace Lane, near Purdy's DIY store, there's a little row of terraced houses, probably no more than 4 or 5 terraced houses, and the plan was for a road to go straight through and come out where those terraced houses are, and there to be a roundabout there. Like I said earlier about more infrastructure, you know, it gives a route into this new development at Waverley, and I'm just wondering whether this were the start of that. But obviously I know there was trouble with getting compulsory purchase orders on those little terraced houses, so whether that put a stop to it. Like I said, I'm not an expert, so there'll be someone out there what does know why this is here and what happened to the planned road. So if you do know, drop a comment, message me, whatever, and that'd be great to know. So we're just heading down towards the lakes now. All this was once the Orgreave colliery site, and you can just see Treaton just over there, St Helen's Church, peeking up out of the hill. But this site is now rich in wildlife. I'll just put a few photos up now of photos I've taken when I've come out with my camera, and it's hard to believe, but this was once, you know, a massively polluted industrial site. So a couple of weeks ago, you might have seen, but we posted about some large bricks what were found on the Waverley site, and we're going to go and have another closer look at them now. I'm glad I posted it because I couldn't work out where they'd come from or how they got here. So just in brief, the bricks state on them that they come from Nunnery Colliery. Now, Nunnery Colliery was located roughly where Macro is now, just off the Sheffield Parkway. But there was a second Nunnery Colliery, and that was Handsworth Nunnery. And that was located just down at the bottom of Finchwell Road. So I come to the conclusion, but with it saying simply Nunnery Colliery, it was the pit at what is now Macro. But quite a lot of people commented, and there's some great knowledge out there from people. It turns out the Nunnery Colliery actually had an adjoining brickworks, so that explains, you know, why they come from a pit. I mean, at first thought, I assumed, but the bricks have come from the actual buildings of the colliery and somehow found their way here, but they apparently come from the brickworks at the Nunnery Colliery. As you can see, there's quite a few of them. I'm just going to give you a closer look now. You can just make out the word nunnery there. And a few people did mention fly tipping, which I can kind of rule out. It's the nearest parking space is on Washfield Lane, probably about half a mile just over that bridge, and then over another smaller footbridge over the railway. And then just up there you've got the bottom of Orgreave Lane and Highfield Lane, which again are about half a mile away, if not more. So fly tipping is very, very unlikely with these. So they, I assume, have come out of the ground, whether they were part of the old shaft or part of the network of tunnels underground, I'm not sure, but somebody will know, and any information you can give, drop it down in the comments. And just while we're walking round, I'm not a geologist, so I do apologise if this sounds silly, but that doesn't look like a natural rock to me. It's got multiple pebbles in it, so if that has been pulled out of the ground at Orgreave, it looks man-made. It's certainly not natural. So if anybody does know, again, give us a shout. Let us know what it is or what you think it might be, or what it once was part of. Another unusual piece of the landscape at Orgreave. Again, we're going to be asking some of you experts watching this, that it's a large mound of earth which has quite a few metal poles sticking out the top. Some people might call it modern art, but it's obviously there for a reason. It's got a purpose, so if anybody knows, that would be very much appreciated. Just get a bit of a closer look now from up above of the mound, what we mentioned earlier, with all the poles sticking out the top. Still none the wiser. So right down at the bottom of the site we have the plaque commemorating the diversion of the River Rother, which ran through the site, but obviously due to the open cast workings had to be moved slightly, 3/4 of a mile in fact. And there's the river in its current position now. Now I just want to show you a photo just on the outskirts of the Orgreave site, but this photo just shows how much it's changed. The house you can see on your left hand side used to be a shop, and in the photo you can see but the Iveco service centre wasn't built. You can clearly see the sign showing the entrance for Orgreave Colliery. So just a little flashback for you to show you what it was like back in what I'm assuming this photo were taken in the 1960s-ish. So that's us finished at Orgreave. We've had a look around the history of the place and what's left from probably the most memorable part of its history and the biggest contributor to its history, the coal mining industry. So I hope you've enjoyed. We do appreciate every single like, comment and share. It's fantastic. I'm blown away by the amount of the followers we've got and the people that comment. It's crazy. But I love the comments, so keep the comments coming. I love having conversations with people, bringing new information and sharing their memories. It's brilliant. That's what I like. I like people to talk about their memories and people to learn new stuff. That's what it's all about. So yeah, keep them comments coming. I appreciate all the likes and everything like that. So yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you very soon.